Now, what do Kanye West, Hayata Samino, and Yuja Wong have in common? They're all exceptionally talented at piano. And while Kanye just barely falls short of one of the greatest pianists to ever do it, Samino and Wong both possess something that normal people don't have. They're Asian. Now, perfect pitch is something that I've only witnessed twice firsthand, once in my first girlfriend and once in a random Asian dude. Now, this ability allows the user to identify and reproduce a musical note as pitch, which essentially means you can hear your girlfriend yapping in, of course, F minor. Now, perfect pitch is so important that amongst the general public, it is found in 0.01% of the population, while in pianists, there's an estimated 20% of professionals that take advantage of this ability. Now, you may be wondering, why hasn't this been nerfed in the new update? This shit is fucking broken. While perfect pitch to start off is first and foremost a genetic predisposition, so please don't try to convince yourself that you can identify an F sharp as a C flat. Now, apart from certain genes, there's a critical period in auditory development where the brain is most able to take in new information. However, past the point where Chris Tyson loses interest, there's an unlikely chance that you will ever unlock this ability.
Do you actually like kids?
Yes, I love it.
That is true.
But let's say you are somehow one of the lucky ones that are either genetically gifted or musically nurtured at a young age. What can you do with this new superpower? Now, while Homelander might not want to take you into the 7, having perfect pitch gives a huge advantage for not only pianists, but literally any instrument that plays notes. However, because I am kinda chalice, anything but the piano itself is completely irrelevant. So let's say at the age of 10, you learn that you have this amazing ability. Now in school, you fly through music class, impress all your friends by plucking notes out of thin air when they sing, and impress relatives by playing a song that you heard 2 seconds ago. But what about actual musical potential? Now, while random people on the internet yap about how perfect pitch isn't that great, it's only like a slight head start, but you'll eventually catch up to them. Bro, I am not catching up to nobody. This dude can learn an entire playlist on the first listen. To people who are like, it's barely an advantage, have never witnessed a dude straight up pick up any song, listen to it for about 2 nanoseconds, and are like, I've heard enough, before playing the most majestic thing you've ever heard. Now that was fucking diabolical. Now, most people on the internet will downplay the sheer advantage that absolute pitch gives for a musician, and while eventually the playing field will be leveled out by talent, hard work, and time, the journey for both parties is not the same. Now, imagine that you are fat. Actually, you ain't even gotta imagine that. But let's say you really want to lose the weight, so you set up a 1-year plan. Okay, I am gonna lose 20 pounds by December, 40 pounds by February, and hopefully not look like an industrial fridge in May. Now, by June, you look proudly in the mirror, lost a whopping 60 pounds from the start from all the dieting, exercising, meal prepping, and constant determination. Now, your buddy, who's equally as overweight as you just a year ago, should have just blasted himself with Ozempic, and now he's the same size as you. Now, what I'm trying to say is that perfect pitch makes some musicians lazy. Some people think that it does nothing for you, which is wrong, but some people think it makes you instantly a world-class musician, which is also wrong. Now, the thing is that absolute pitch does nothing for your actual playing ability. Now, just because you can identify a note or a chord from no reference point doesn't actually mean shit. Now, the example I said before of a guy playing a majestic song was also because he's been playing for several years. Now, some of you really got rage bait into thinking I was talking about a guy who's like, what is this triangle black box? Let me replicate 10 years of musical talent because I can identify what a fucking C natural is. Now, that same dude is majoring in music, RCM 10, works at Wendy's. Oh wait, that doesn't add anything. And he has perfect pitch. Now, I said a lot of good things about this ability, but what are some of the downsides? Now, there's something called relative pitch that a lot of musicians argue is more valuable than absolute. First of all, your ears are tuned at, let's say, A is 440 Hz. However, if alternative tuning was ever used, the ability to recognize notes or chord progressions relative to one another is much more valuable. And just like a piano, a lot of individuals report losing the superpower as time goes on. But without training yourself to be tuned correctly, all of a sudden C becomes a B, B becomes an A, and your ex's cries are now in E minor. Now, this sheer loss of absolute pitch often occurs when individuals are in their 40s and 50s, and at this point, music is no longer enjoyable. The sheer heartbreak of individuals when they realize that Runaway's intro will never be the same again. Now, let's go all the way back to when you were at your prime. Now, pianists in their 30s who are taking full advantage of all the wonders will soon realize that all their competition has caught up with them. But that's okay though, because the one thing that they'll always be better at is musical transcription. Now, the word transcript means to write, and so musical transcription is listening to music that you can hear and turning to music that you can see. Now, you might be wondering, isn't this skill completely useless? Why would a pianist ever need to write down notes when they're the one being asked to play? Now, concert pianists actually frequently use this ability when arranging a piece of music for a different instrument or ensemble that's used for solo performances. Now, sometimes these transcriptions range from exact adaptations to completely new creative interpretations. For example, Russian composer and active vodka drinker Rachmaninoff absolutely hoodwinked the fuck out of Bach, who's been dead for over a century. Now, he flipped up his grave, yoinked his violin partita number 3 to make it his own. And while I may be saying, hey, that's not allowed, Logan Paul would beg to differ. Now, apart from concert pianists, a large number of composers also take advantage of perfect pitch when writing their pieces. Frédéric Chopin, Beethoven, and the coolest name to ever exist, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, are all examples of this. Now, composers are arguably the ones that are most greatly benefiting from absolute pitch, producing some of the greatest pieces known in history. Well, did you learn something? Please consider subscribing as we're closing in on 10K. Yeah! Let's get it!
Tell your friends that you're leaving me. They say that they don't see what you see in me.